Greetings and welcome to our first project in the class, which is going to be a basic Photoshop document. So at this point you need to have Photoshop installed. Hopefully you have done all that, and we are going to be using CC2018, the newest version at this moment. And I'll launch it up, and you're always going to get some type of artwork and Photoshop on there. And the very first window that you get is all of your last open. You can see there's some documents there from I've worked on in the past. We can create new documents from here. We can open previous documents. There's recent, there's CC files, and also Lightroom over here as well. We can also view this as a list, but looks better with thumbnails. And up here we have work, and then we also have learn. And if you'll be signed into your CC account as well, so you'll either get a picture of yourself or a blank one if you haven't done that yet. So this is what opens up every time. The Learn has lots and lots of stuff in Photoshop. Now, one of the nice things with the newest version of the Creative Cloud is they're adding more and more education portions to and how-to videos, things like that. And you can see here, they'll actually walk you through it in the app on how to remove objects and imperfections or change the color of an object or an area, learn the Photoshop basics, duplicate objects. So there's lots and lots of good tutorials out there that are built into Photoshop now. And this is something fairly new. Up to this point, Photoshop had a few like help files and things like that. But as more and more people are coming in to use these programs that aren't traditionally trained in digital arts or graphic design, and like you guys, they're really trying to give you the basics on how to learn Photoshop. So lots of great resources built into the program now, and that's going to continue. We also have Adobe stock down here at the bottom. That will search the Adobe stock library. These either you have to pay for, some are free. And so if you are looking for stock photography and things like that, you can search directly from here. So we're going to create a new document today, and this is what you'll be turning in as your first assignment. We're going to walk through all the steps. It's not that long of a project. We're only using a handful of the tools, but it allows us to get started. We're not opening any other files from any other sources. Everything is built directly in Photoshop, so you don't have to have anything else to actually do this. We're going to keep the file size a little smaller than we normally would, just because you'll be turning this in, and there's really no reason to go larger for this one. Every week we will have, or every chapter we will have a final project in here, and as we go on, we're going to go back over the things we did in the previous one and add more and more to them. So let's get started here in Photoshop. I'm going to do a create new. So we have over here on the left, create new. And I want to go through the new document window. This has become much more robust than it was in previous versions of Photoshop. It used to be this area that I'm kind of circling here, that's all you had. Now we have all these presets and all these other great things that we can work with. These are all the sizes that I've created in the last few months, give or take. And you'll see they're in inches, some are in pixels, and then we'll see PPI on here as well, and that's points per square inch. The higher this number is, the higher the resolution is. So you'll see I've created a lot of different documents. We also have saved documents, saved settings, which I have not saved any, but if I had saved any of them, they are there. We also have photo, we have print, art and illustration, web, mobile, and film and video. And you'll notice we get some presets here as well. But I'm going to go back to photo, and we have a default Photoshop size, 7 by 5 at 300 dpi or 300 ppi. So that's 7 inches by 5, so it's like a 5 by 7, 300 ppi. So when we're looking at resolution, there's a rule of thumb that we want to work with here. If you're going to print this off an inkjet printer, sending it to a printer, sending it to Target, or let's say Walmart to print something off the photo printer, the PPI that we work with, and I'll say DPI a lot, that's dots per square inch, that's from the printing side of the world, but I do mean the same thing, so I interchange them here. So 300 PPI is the standard for print. If you don't know what you're going to do with this and you build it, then you may go on the web and other places, I still say work at 300. That's what we're going to do today. In the web world, we work at 72. You know, it's much lower resolution. So it's almost, what, 4 4 times less than the 300, and that's because it's a smaller file size. The files we're end up here are going to be much larger. Same thing in print. You'll notice letter 8.5 by 11, and it's 300. Legal, tabloid, and A4. That's in millimeters. But you'll notice 300 across the board here. Art and illustration, same thing. 300 all the way across the board. Oops. So what's great too is they give you some pre-made layouts to work with. You can open these. Right now I'm not going to, but you can play with them, and we will use some of these a little bit later on. But what we're going to work with is a fairly small file size. We're going to do 4 by 6. So that's a very standard size here for in the United States for photos. So it's 5 by 7, but 4 by 6 is what you print. Let's say you have a bunch of digital photos, you go to Target or Costco or Walmart, and you load up the files. You're going to be printing 4 by 6s, 8 by 10s, 11 by 17. So we're going to do 4 by 6 because it's a very standard size. It is landscape. We could do vertical as well, but we're going to stick with the landscape and keep it pretty simple. Now, if I click on it, you'll notice my presets change over here. So it's 6 inches is the width, and the height is 4 inches. You can change this to pixels, centimeters, millimeters, points, and picas. So pixels, this is how many pixels make up the image. It'd be 1800 by 1200 if we counted each individual pixel. The higher this number is, the higher the resolution. Inches, 6 by 4. If we went to centimeters, there's our centimeters. Here's millimeters. Points. And then picas is a measurement for type. And I'm not going to get into that right now, but as you move on through other classes, we're going to be talking about picas. But we're really just going to work in pixels and inches in this class. So we have 6 by 4, and before we do anything else, we need to title it. So I'm going to put my last name, my first name. I'm doing underscores, or you can do dashes. I don't care. Just don't do spaces. And we're going to call this assignment 1. Or you can just put 01 at the end. You know what assignment this is. Whoops. There you go. This is the file that you're going to save and turn in through our online system. Resolution is 300 pixels per square inch. We're not doing centimeters. You could go up, but why do that? You're setting up with a bigger file at this point, and we don't want to go down. So 300 is what we're going to work at. If we're working for the web, as I said earlier, this would be 72. Color mode. So we're going to work in RGB. So red, green, and blue. That's the colors that you see on the screen on television or monitor. CMYK is cyan, magenta, yellow, and K is always black. This is for 4-color offset printing. We will talk about that in this class, but for the most part, you're always going to be doing RGB color 8-bit when we're working in Photoshop. You can't go to 16 and 32. There's no reason to right now. The background, we can choose black and white, so that's just the canvas, or we could do transparent too, but let's go with white. So we have a white background. And there are some advanced options. I'm going to say right now, leave all this alone. There's no reason for us to get into it. As the semester goes on, we talk about more things. We'll go in and work with these. So we have our document, new document settings ready to go. We named our file. If you forget to name it, we can always do that later. 6 by 4 in inches, 300 pixels per square inch, RGB color, and a white background. So pretty much right out of the preset. Now there isn't artboards. We can have more than one board. We're not going to do that on this project. So these are the basics. I'm going to hit create, and we're going to get a new document. So we got to make sure we all have the exact same layout here. And before we do that though, we're going to do File, Save As. We need to save this document. If you're on a PC, it should be very similar. The only difference is instead of a command key, you're going to be doing control key on these for the shortcuts. I will use pull down menus. I will call out the shortcuts, but I will not use shortcuts because you can't see them in the videos. So I'm always going to try to show you where the tools are or the commands are somewhere in the menu system. So we're going to do a Save As. I'm going to go to my desktop. And so if you're on Mac or PC, I'm just going to save this directly to my desktop so it's easy to find. Format is Photoshop in the pull-down menu. Just regular Photoshop, not this DCS down at the bottom. Regular Photoshop. Everything else we leave alone. We're not going to save as a copy, embed the color profile, and I'm going to save the file. So just like any other document, Microsoft Word or Office or Excel or any other programs used in the past, this is pretty straightforward on saving. Now, a couple things. I want you to go under Window, and we're going to go to Workspace. And I want you to select Graphic and Web, not Essentials, but Graphic and Web. And then I want you to go back. So I selected it. I already had it selected. Your layout may change. So if your layout looks like this, this is the Essentials layout. Under Window, Workspace, you go to Graphics and Web, you'll see the change. Then I want you to reset Graphic and Web. That'll give you the exact same layout that I have right now. So we have character, paragraph, glyphs. Then we have library and properties. We're using properties a lot here in those. And then we have layers. This is real important, is to make sure the layers are up. So this gives you the same layout. Then I want you to do a view and turn on the rulers. So if you don't have rulers on, I want you to do view, rulers, or Command R. You'll notice with the rulers, mine are in inches. If yours is in another millimeters or centimeters, you can right-click with your mouse on the ruler, and you can change from pixels to inches to centimeters. You can also do Control-click or Command-click. So if you're not comfortable with right-clicking on things, the Control key on the PC, Command key on the Mac will give you the flyout menus. So inches is where we want to be. I like having the rulers on. We use them all the time. And we have our layout here. So if we look, the basic layout of Photoshop is, I'm going to select actually my very first tool. This is the Move tool. And then we have other tools in here, Artboard and Marquee tool. And you'll notice why as I float over these, they actually give you a little preview. And I'm going to leave this on. This is in 2018. Magic Wand tool. We have the Crop tool. So we have tons of tools over here. As the semester goes on, I'm going to go into each of these. I don't like to sit here and explain every one of them. I like to use them. And so we'll be using about 4 of them today. But all of our tools are over here on the left. This is our foreground color and our background color. We also have our screen modes. And you can go to full screen. Or you can go to standard screen. So I'm clicking and holding. I'm going to leave it in standard because I like to have a little bit of room around where I'm working. But you can always go to full screen mode if you want to. Or full screen with menu bar. This is probably the one you may want to work with. And actually, I'll stay in that one. Gives me a little bit more room to work too. So at the very bottom here, you can do full screen with menu bar. It'll fill up the screen. And you should be ready to go. Now up at the top is all of our options for each tool. As I change a tool, you'll notice this all changes. So every tool has its own options. This is the Move tool. It allows us to select anything and move it around. I want you to make sure this is checked for Auto Select Layer and Show Transform Controls. These two need to be turned on. If you forget to turn them on, and I'll actually do some work here and turn it off just to show you, we're not going to get transformed boxes around our objects, which means we don't get a highlight around the objects. It's a little tougher to see what we have selected. So that should be on. These are all of our alignment tools. So if we have multiple objects, and in Photoshop, every layer is really an object. So every time we create something, we can align those with all of them, and there is a 3D mode for it. So I'll be coming back to the Move tool a lot. You'll notice when I float over them, you'll see Move tool, and there's a little brackets with the letter V. That is the quick key command. So if I hit T on the keyboard, watch my cursor right here, it becomes the Type tool. If I type V, as in Victor, it goes back to the Move tool. M is actually a whole other tool. I know that sounds, you're like, oh, the move tool, it's V. So you start learning these. I use them a lot. I won't be doing them in the video just because you don't see what I'm doing. I'm always going to try to come over here, select it, show you which one it is, and then come and do the whatever we're working on in the canvas. So we're going to do a real simple layout with some color. We're going to block this up. We'll have a bar at the top with some color. We'll have a bar at the bottom with some color. We'll break it up with another bar. We'll use the type tool and apply a few of our other tools here, like the circle tool, ellipse, and things like that. And we'll build it out. This is really just about you playing with the tools, getting used to the type tool, getting used to the move tool. There's no other images we're importing in. So everything will be built directly here, saved, and then turned in. The next projects we work on will get a little more complicated. So as I said, I'm going to have 3 areas here. I'm going to have a top area. We're going to have kind of a center bar to break it up, and then a bottom area we'll put some text and some other things. So we need to lay those areas out. Over here under layers, we have a background. You notice there's a lot of different tools under layers, and this is where we're going to be doing a ton of work, working with all this. And I'm actually going to pull this off and just bring it up here. You can leave it where it was. That's, it's not going to hurt anything. I just want to make it so it's a little easier for you to see. So we have a background. Put it right here. We have some tools down at the bottom we can apply to objects that are layers. So everything we create becomes a layer. If any of you use Adobe Illustrator or InDesign, each object, you can have multiple objects in a layer. Here in Photoshop, every object is its own layer. So we can apply properties to it. We can do things to it. We can move them around. We can group them if we want to as well. So think every time you create something, it's going to create a new layer. Well, we need to name that layer as well. So what I'm going to do is grab the rectangle tool. Now this draws a rectangle with a fill color. If we look up here at the top, we have rectangle, we have a shape, which is what we want to keep it on. There is a fill color, there is a stroke color, so we can apply a stroke to this and different types of strokes, width and height in pixels. But I want to set this color. So you might have black or something right now. I'm going to click on fill, and you get all these different colors. And I'm going to pick a gray, kind of a lighter gray here. So any color will do. You don't have to be perfect to what I'm doing. I want you to just kind of play and work with it. I am going to put my layers back over here. Whoops. So you'll notice before I start going, my layers then got docked. That's fine. Yours is going to look a little different, but if you want to, you can dock it back out, and you can see there's a lot of room here. Or window, workspace, reset. I'm going to leave this just because I want the room. Now, depending on the size of your screen, you may be zoomed in, you may be zoomed out. But if I do view, you can zoom in and zoom out, or command plus, command minus. You could fit on screen with 0 or 1. So if I go 100%, you'll see I zoomed way in. If I go to 200%, I'm way, way zoomed in, but I can zoom out as well, command minus, and go back to where I was. The other tool that you'll probably end up using to move around is the hand tool. You can move around the artboard. You can also do that just by holding down, if you're in another tool, hold down the space bar. You'll see my hand, it goes from my move tool to space bar, and I can move around. So I'm just moving it. I need to have some room. This is the artboard. This is the bleed. I like to see a little bit of gray because some things bleed off my artwork. So I'm going to go back, grab my rectangle tool. I have the fill set to a gray. Anything will do. Whoops. I'll hit cancel. If you click once with the tool, you can draw a rectangle. Or, like I'm going to do, I'm going to click, hold, and drag. You'll notice I'm not going straight to the middle. I'm kind of leaving a little bit, like on thirds. You see that little purple line that appears? That means it's on center. I've drawn a box that's perfectly aligned on center with my layout. I'll let go. And what you end up with is a rectangle with a gray fill. Now let's say I want to change the color of this. I have to go to layers, or I can go to properties, either one. I'm a little old school with this. I like to go to layers, and then I double click on the little image of the layer. See it right here? And this allows me then to pick colors. Now the color picker, you can see we work in a lot of different spectrums of color here. You can drag, drop, you can use web-only colors, there's color libraries, you can add to the swatch. We're not going to get into that right now. We're just keeping this simple. If you knew what color mix that you're working with, you can type it in too. So I want you to go into your layers and double click on it and pick another color. Play with it. There we go. I like that green. And change the color. After you do that, we need to name this layer. Right now, this is rectangle 1, so we'll call this, I'll call it top box. And to change the name, you double click on the name in the layers, and you can type in the name of the layer. So that's my top box in my layout. So now we need to draw a bottom box. So I'll grab my rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a new box. You notice I bleed off the edges here too. Now I picked up the same color that I last chose. And this time, instead of going to layers, it opened up properties. You'll see the color right here. I can double click on it, or sorry, single click, and I can change the color again. Or I can go back to layers. You'll see I have a brand new layer now. I had top box and this was drawn over it. So in the layer hierarchy, we have background, top box, and rectangle. I can double click and play with the colors some more. And I'm happy with that. We need to name it. So let's call this one bottom box. And let's say I want to have the bottom box before the top box in the hierarchy here. You can click, hold, and drag your layers and rearrange them. Now the bottom box is below the top box. I can move them back. So each of these objects interact with each other in the hierarchy of the layer. So I'm going to add a third box here. In this case, if I start drawing it, it's going to draw it on top of the bottom box. It will always put whatever object you start working on above the selected layer. So if I start drawing right now, it's going to put it between the top and the bottom. But I want this to sit on top of both. So I'm going to click on top box. You'll notice you get this nice box around showing what you've selected. And if you grab the move tool and you have auto select and show transform controls turned on, you can actually grab and resize this box from the edges. When you're done, you have to double click. So if I move this down, I double click and it sets it. So you see we have a lot of flexibility here. So with the top box selected, I'm going to grab my rectangle tool again. And this time I'm going to draw a box overlapping both of these. I'll go back to layers. I'm going to rename this stripe. Double click on it and let's pick a different color. That looks good. Maybe something in the browns. Yeah, actually. There. Not being too picky here, but I still want it to look decent. With my move tool, or V on the keyboard, I can resize this, and you'll notice it'll snap to. It'll snap to other objects, which is a great tool. Go snap. See right there, snap. But I want them to overlap a little, just as a natural break. Now we need to do something we have not done yet, which is File, save. We've saved the document, but we haven't saved the work that we've done. So I'm going to hit save. We have our basic layout here. We have the bottom box, the top box, and we have a stripe breaking up. Well, now I want to draw a circle. I'm going to do an ellipse tool here. So U on the keyboard. And I want you to hold down the Shift key. And I'm going to click up here in the corner and I'm going to drag across. The Shift key constraints. So any object we create, if you hold down the Shift key, you're going to get a constraint. If you don't, you end up with this oval. See the problem? I want a perfect circle. So the Shift key will give me the perfect circle. And I'm not being picky on the size. I just want a circle. Let's go look at the layers. So I have an ellipse. We'll call it circle. Let's rename it circle. And I'm going to double click on it and I'm going to pick another color. You'll notice with the color picker, up to this point I've just selected colors in here. But what if I want to start with this color? When you float outside the color picker, you get an eyedrop tool. If you click on the brown, it will match the color. And that's what I'm going to do. I want to match this color here. And hit OK. Now if we go up, that looks good. But I want to put a stroke on this. I want to do some things to this. I want to make it a little bit, have some depth. And I'm going to show you now some really cool features with your layers. So I have the circle selected. You can see my bounding box. Make sure that the Show Transform Controls tools is on. You get the handles, the transform handles. If I want to make this larger or smaller, I can grab a handle and drag, but look what happens. If I hold the Shift key, it constrains. Then you double click, and I can click and move this and position it. See those purple lines? You get a really nice alignment here. So at the very bottom of your layers palette, and I'm going to pull it off and put it over here just so it's easier to see. We have a circle. We have stripes, top box, bottom box, all these things. Excuse me. I haven't done much with the layer options yet, but if you come up here, we have all these other tools. We're going to get into these a little bit later, but for right now, you can set the opacity. You can make it like 50%. That kind of gives it a neat effect because it's the same color, but it's a different color here. I'll go back to 100. The fill is a little different. It looks the same, but it actually acts differently. Opacity is the overall object. The fill is just a transparency on the fill color. So there's times when we use one or the other. But what I want you to do is down here on the FX. These are special effects. It's called a layer style. If you click on it, we get all these other things we can do just with this one object. We have bevel and emboss, stroke, inner shadow, inner glow, all these fun things, drop shadow. I want you to select stroke. This pulls up our layer style palette and we get a stroke. There's a little checkbox here. We have the size of the stroke. We can make it bigger or smaller. In this case, it's on the outside. So you can see it's all the way on the outside here. I'm going to make it about 10 or 15, somewhere in that range. And I want it on the inside. And there's a reason for that. We're going to put a drop shadow too. And if we have it on the outside, the stroke would overlap the drop shadow. So about 15 point, I'll just make it 15. You can type it in as well. Position is inside. Blend mode is normal. No opacity. And we can change the color of the fill. Just like we did over here, I can click on color. I'm going to go darker instead of lighter with this. I don't know. What do you think? Nah, let's go lighter. There we go. And that looks good. Now I want to add a drop shadow. I can close this, hit OK, go back to the FX and go to drop shadow. Or I could have just went right down to drop shadow and hit the checkbox. So you see the drop shadow that appeared. So I'm going to bring the opacity down, and the distance is way too much. So my distance on this, about 15. We can bring the size down a little too. But I want you to play with these. I'm not going to go through all, another time we're going to go through all the details here. You can see so much we can play with. But I just want to show you real quickly how fast I can just take a basic object and add some depth and field to the whole thing. So I'll hit OK, and I now have a circle with effects, stroke, and drop shadow. I can turn these off or on, and I can turn off and on the effects here, or I can open and close the layer effects too. All right, so let's add some text in here. We're getting close to being finished almost. Like I said, this is a real basic document. We're not going to get into anything else. So we're going to try to get some text in here and play with that a little bit. We'll put our name on it. I also want to go through a couple filters before we do that. So I'm going to select top box. I'm going to go up to filter. And there's all kinds of filters we can apply. Now, some of these only work on images. The one I'm going to use right now is, let's see, we can do blur's not going to do much, strokes, distort, but noise, we can add some noise. So I'm going to do add noise. So we're going to add noise to this top box. And it's going to ask, this shape layer must be rasterized or converted to a smart object before proceeding. If rasterized, it will no longer be editable as a shape. We're going to convert to smart object. This is a good rule of thumb. If it asks you to convert to a smart object, do that first. Don't rasterize. Rasterize means it becomes pixel based. But we're going to convert to smart object. And you can see add noise. So this looks kind of like the television, static. We have uniform and Gaussian. There's also monochromatic. And the amount, you can go down, so it's a much tighter, or you can go very high, and you get very pixelated. So I'm going to go low here. I'm just adding a little bit of texture to it, nothing more. And I'll hit OK. Look at my layer. I now have a smart filter that added noise. If I want to turn this off, I can click on the little eyeball and turn it off. And I can turn it back on. I can collapse these too. I'm going to do the same thing down here on the bottom box. I'm going to go filter. And we could do pixelate as well. I'm going to do color halftone. Same thing, convert to smart object. You'll see the max radius, everything. I'm just going to hit OK and let's see what happens. Oh boy, that's a little too much, huh? Now, it's up to you if you want to keep it. If we want to get rid of it, I can grab the smart filter and drag it down to the trash can. Not the whole layer. If you accidentally do the whole layer, and I'm going to do Control Z, or Command Z, I mean. Whoop, it's actually not letting me undo, but I can add it back in. That was a little too much, I think, right? So let's try one other filter. We can do fragment. Nope, that didn't do anything. I'll throw that away. I'm just going to do add noise again. Just to add that kind of little bit of a texture down here. It's not much, but just enough. So I'm happy with that. Let's get some text in here. So I'm going to put my name And depends on the length of your name. So I'm going to put my name right down in this area. So this is kind of like a title card when it's all said and done. So I'm going to grab the type tool. So this is the horizontal type tool. There is a vertical too, but we're going to stick with horizontal. Anytime you see a little arrow in the corner on a tool, you can click and hold. So I'm going to grab my type tool. Up at the top, we have what font. It could be different than mine. You might have something else selected. What I'm going to do, we all need to work with the same font. You'll notice we have a lot of fonts installed. We have Arial, some of the big ones. For this one, I'm going to go real basic and go Impact. And I know you have it. So Impact. You can also type in here Impact. We're going to do Impact Regular. And I want you to look over here too. You'll notice we have a character palette. So all the changes I'm doing here are also showing up here. And there's a lot more options for the type tool. So font size, let's start around 72. We're going to make it larger in a minute. For the anti-aliasing, we're going to use crisp, leave it alone. Alignment is left align. And for color, let's stick with white for right now. We're going to put a stroke on it and a drop shadow as well. So I'm going to click anywhere. I'm not clicking and dragging. I'm just clicking once. And I'm going to type my name. I'll put a return. You'll see it's fairly large because it's 72 point. With the type tool, you can select the type like you do in any other program. But I'm going to grab the move tool. And I can move this around. So I want to make this fit. And we're going to talk about type terminology throughout this course. But one of the issues I have right now is, I'm just going to move it up here so you can see it. Actually, that would fit pretty nicely, wouldn't it? But I want it down here. Is the leading, the space between what we call, actually, we have line height, we have X height, and then we have baseline. So this type sits on the baseline right here. You can see where my cursor is. The space between these two needs to get smaller. And if we have it selected with the move tool, we can come over and we have the font size, and then we have the leading. If I place my cursor in here and use my arrow keys up and down on the keyboard, you can change the leading between the two. Or you can use the pull down menu, or you can use, when you float over right next to it, you can drag left and right. That arrow key though I like. So you can come in here. I just clicked inside where the number is. Sorry about that. And I can make this smaller. And I can make this larger. So let's tighten it up. And I'm happy with this right here. Now I can move this back in. I can also change the size of it. Whoops. I let go a little early. By grabbing one of the handles and the shift key. If you have no shift key, it's not constraint. So shift key. And once I have it fit, I'll double click and I'm happy. Now I want to have the same stroke and drop shadow on this text. I want the same exact thing I created here. So what I can do is select circle. And you'll see I have effects here. I can drag and drop these effects onto my type up here. But you'll notice it jumped from that layer to the other. If I hit Command or Control Z, that's undo, or undo, step forward, step backwards. But step backwards goes back a step. Undo right here, Command Z. So I undid what I dragged up here and went, ooh, that didn't work. So I did undo. So now I can select my text. I want to apply the same effects. they're not going to work together here really well, so I'm going to have to create all new ones, but they'll be similar. So I'll have my name. I'm going to do a stroke. This time, though, it doesn't work on the inside, does it? It remembered my last settings, so I'm going to do outside. I'm going to make it a little bit thinner because it doesn't need to be as large. And then I'm going to apply the drop shadow. And that looks good. I want to change the color of the font though. So the same way we changed the color of the layers, I can double click on my name. Whoops, sorry. On the T on the name. And up here under character, under color, I can change the color of the character. So I'm going to go darker. There we go. Maybe a little lighter, a little darker. Maybe almost black. What do you think? Dark. I like that. So this is the basics. I just wanted you to get your feet wet. Go through kind of a short, under 50-minute video just to get you start playing with the tools. One of the things I'm going to point out though with Photoshop is you've got to play. If you don't play and you just do everything by the book and follow exactly what I did, that's fine. But it's the creative side, using these tools and mixing them together. And you saw all these different layer effects. I want you to start playing with them. You can't break anything. You saw that I didn't change anything permanently here. If I don't like something, I can always go in and just throw this away. You know, I can just go, I don't even want it turned on. You don't see it. Or if I want to just make a layer disappear, I can make it disappear with the visibility. So playing, organizing, if you notice, we're very organized with this. I know what everything is. If I open this file 5 years from now, I can look at it and go, okay, I understand what I was doing. So getting in the habit of doing these things is very important, but just playing with it, this effect that I did in the background isn't a major effect, but it adds some depth. I like to have depth in all of my layouts, drop shadows, overlays, color harmony as well, things like that, working in the same color palettes. All those little things start adding up over time, and that's what I'm trying to do with these projects is we build, next week we'll build kind of on the exact same tools that we did this week. So now that I have this ready to go, I'll save it. I'll quit Photoshop. And here is my file. There's my PSD file. And the way we named it, that way I know whose files are what. When you upload it, it makes my life easier. We'll just leave it like that. And you'll upload this through Canvas in your assignment. So that's it for this first project. It was simple, but hopefully you got to play with more than just one or two tools, which you should have. And it kind of built into what you'll be going over in the lynda.com videos, as well as other things in the class starting next week. So once again, hopefully you learned a little something in this project, and we'll see you in the next one.